guys. So today we're going to start going over how to teach your dog or puppy to lay down. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. I will preface with down is not the first obedience technique that I start with dogs. Yes. A lot of them find it harder to lay down. It's a little bit more complicated. Some dogs are reluctant around people that they don't know. Yes. But after you get them comfortable, it can be quite easy. So we'll be going over a couple of different techniques today to make it easier for your puppy. Right now I'm just keeping her entertained. I'm luring her. I'm having her follow the food in my hand. Yes. With this first one that we'll cover, it's easier to teach them how to sit in the beginning. So you can see first I lure her into a sit, and then I have some food in my hand, and I scooch out. Yes, good girl. Now, we've already done this several times, so it makes it easier for her to do that. I'll do it with her sibling later who has not learned how to sit yet. So at first I lure her into a sit, and then I bring my hand down. Yes, good girl. Now as she gets better at this, I'll just be able to pull my hand out and she'll be able to sit on her own, or lay down on her own. Good girl. And then I can toss a cookie to the side, a couple of kibbles so that she breaks her down so that we can do another rep. See if she wants to lay down on her own yet. Nope. So I'm going to push her back into a sit and then right into a down. Yes. And then I reward her. So for her that works pretty well. When I was first teaching her to lay down, you'll likely see this with her sister, I rewarded the halfway point. So I rewarded her for stretching out down because she was one of those dogs who was reluctant to lay down on her own. So luring from a sit is your first option. There is another option. Come here, baby. You can lure your dog underneath something. So again, it depends on what's difficult for your dog. Yes. A lot of times, you might want to reward the in-between point, especially for dogs who are anxious. So these guys can fall into that category, especially with new things with a lot of pressure on them. So I'll try and put my feet up as high as possible. Yes! Good girl. Good job. So just getting her comfortable with laying down. Over time, you'll be able to remove one leg and then remove both legs. And we're just going to then be relying on our hand signal to teach her how to lay down. Another option is you can wait for your dog to offer it. Yes, good girl. The more you practice with a different technique, the easier it's going to be for your dog to offer this behavior to you. With this next one, I'm going to have the treats in my hand, and my hand's going to be upside down. Yes. So that was also from her sitting. I'll give another rep. Try and start without her sitting down for me. She knows what's up now, so that makes it a little bit harder. So from here, I'm going to start with the treats underneath my hand. Yes, good girl. Some dogs will just go right down. Some dogs you'll find that they're really trying to push underneath your hand to get to the treats, but they're reluctant to lay down. In that case, I'll reward for them their elbow hitting the ground, their front hitting the ground, but not their butts. And I'm just making sure that they're getting rewarded for the behavior, because otherwise a lot of dogs become discouraged and they don't want to practice anymore. It becomes less fun for them. Good girl. So that's going to be it for her. You did notice that even though she's laying down pretty quickly, I'm not saying down yet. I don't want to name it until I know that she's doing a really good job with it, and she's going to be able to do it every time I make that hand signal. So I'll want to get quite a few reps of this in before I get a down, or before I say down. And I'll want to make sure that I like the mechanics of her down as well. Because there are, yes, two different main ways that a dog can down. I don't particularly care. But if you're looking to do obedience or sports, a lot of times they want a rock back down where your dog will go backwards on all of its legs, as opposed to a sitting down where your dog sits and then goes forward with their legs. So if you're looking for more of a rock back down, look at that. You goober, come here. Good girl. If you're looking for a rock back down, a lot of times you want to do this technique, and you, yes, good girl, you push a little bit more back and towards them, and that's how you can get the dog to rock back if you want a little bit of a fancier down. Also used a little bit more for service dogs, because then when they sit down, stand, they're actually always in the same position as opposed to moving around a little bit. Good girl. What a good girl. So that's how you can start off a down. With a puppy who already knows a little bit, I'll switch over to her sister and we'll see what we get for her. Good girl. Alright, so we are here with Bogani. She has started learning how to sit, but she's a little bit behind her sister. Yes, good girl. So she has not been working on her down yet. So at first, I'm just going to be rewarding her for sitting. Just a couple of kibbies to the side, that way I can reset her a little bit. This is also helpful for dogs who get stuck in a position. Just toss a kibble to the side or a treat to the side so that your dog goes and gets it, and then they can come back to you. So I get her to sit. Good girl. And then I pull the treats forward so you can see how she broke out of that sit. That's not uncommon at first, but because she didn't reach down much, I'm not going to reward her for that. Ooh. So I'm going to hold the treats upside down. Now, training down is going to be very boring at first, especially for those first couple of reps where the dog does not know what you're doing. So don't be worried if your training looks a little bit like this, a little bit haphazard. Yes. And at first, even if she's not doing exactly what I'm looking for, I'm going to start rewarding for things that are in the direction of what I'm looking for. That way she doesn't get frustrated and discouraged. That's my ring. That's my ring. I'm going to see if she wants to sit again. Good girl, yes. Give her some treats, take the food away. I can also see if she wants to go down when I go back towards her. Good. So I'm letting her slowly eat out of my hand when I do this, because that little bit of an elbow bend is the best that I've gotten so far. At first, I'm not really picky about my criteria, and I'm okay with that because I'm not naming what I'm doing for her yet. If I was trying to put a name to this already, this is what she would think it is. Yes, good girl. She would think it's this little weird half bow, or that it's going from sitting to standing. So I want to make sure that when I'm naming my obedience, that it really looks like what I want it to finally look like. Yes, good girl. Good job. And I can reward her there a couple of times if I want. She starts to get up. Yes, good girl. So it can be a little bit messy at first while you're figuring out your mechanics, while you're trying to figure out what your dog responds best to. You can toss a couple of kibbles for her to go get them. After you get a couple of reps in, though, you're usually pretty good. Now, we're starting this out in a pretty boring environment for her. There's nothing exciting going on. There's really nothing else for her to do besides be with me. You can see all of my other dogs are in their place, just relaxing. It becomes much harder to teach obedience if you have multiple dogs, if they're all playing. Yes, good girl. So you want to try and teach your dog when there's nothing else exciting going on, otherwise you're going to be fighting for their attention. Especially when they're a puppy. If you have a dog who already pays a lot of attention to you and they don't care about their surroundings, then that's fine. But when we're first starting to teach them, generally we want it to be nice and boring, and then we can start teaching her, hey, even if I say down when another dog's running around, if it's when we're running around outside, yes. Whatever it is, I still want you to be able to down. And that's how you work on generalization with your dog. You teach them that the command means the same thing in different situations. So then they know that they have to go down when you say it, when you're on a trail, when you're in the house, when you have guests coming over. A lot of times we get to this first point and then we stop. We think that the dog knows it. But that's when you have a lot of miscommunication with your dog. Your dog doesn't quite understand what you're talking about. Now you can see my hand position is a little bit odd here, mostly just because I'm sitting down. You could do this from standing, and there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can hold your hand. It just depends on, yes, what works best for you and your dog. Right now I have my hand kind of cupped with the food inside of it just because that's what she likes to follow and also what works best for my wrist action. A lot of times people will hold their food like this, and it will be upside down so that the dog can kind of stick their nose in here but not get the food until they hit the right position. Or some people have their hand out flat. So it just depends on, again, what works for you and your dog. Yes, good girl. That's a good job, Miss Bogani. So now you can see we're getting a pretty good laying down from her. You can see that she sits a little bit side saddle. So if I wanted a more formal down, I wouldn't be naming this for a little while until I clarified with her that I did in fact want her to sit straight. For me, where I'm not anticipating doing any obedience with her, and I'm guessing that her new owners won't either when she gets adopted, I don't particularly care about the side saddle, but it is something to keep an eye on because we want to make sure that she has nice muscular and skeletal balance. So I can kind of edge her to the side there. Good girl. Alright, so that's how you can start off with downing your dog. As they get better, we're slowly going to fade off the hand signals. So ideally I would want to just get her to the point where I could go like this, or whatever hand signal you want for teaching your dog how to down. And when they're doing a really good job, I will then start switching over to a verbal command where I would say down before I do the hand signal. So I hope that helps. Have a great day.